All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here on the Harmless Dave channel, talking about harmful things, mixing music and politics. Okay, so there's your warning. So you don't have to watch. You can go and watch the Fluffy Bunny channel. Everything is fine. You're okay. I'm okay. Let's recite the alphabet together. Let's watch cats fall off of tables. You go do that and not watch me. Please go watch something else. For the love of God, just do it. And of course, doing what I do for just like a small handful of people here. Literally. Just like you there and just like me here. Now, if you're going to watch, all right, you're going to hear my commentary, then you've been warned. All right, so apparently, Stephen Colbert has weighed in on the feud between Donald Trump and Bruce Springsteen. And this is what Colbert had to say. Stephen Colbert, I'm not sure how his ratings are doing these days. I'm sure he's got the select few that are still tuned in after they've sat through their local news propaganda for 30 minutes. And then Colbert comes on to reassure them that their worldview is intact and that he's there, the guy who had, dancing syringes on his television show 4 or 5 years ago to promote a certain product. By the way, I'm sure his show is well-funded by both Pfizer and Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, AstraZeneca, whoever it is who keeps his show afloat, or things that are related to that. I'm sure that's where most of the money comes from. So therefore, the views on the Colbert show have to certainly reflect the advertisers. Otherwise, they wouldn't continue to promote their products, their ideology, basically, on his show. So Springsteen, who went over to the UK and then was countered by Trump, who basically said this, I see that highly overrated. And, you know, when Colbert reads this stuff, like, he thinks it's funny because when he reads this stuff, he just assumes that everybody in his audience is going to think that Trump speaking this way is very Neanderthal. I see that highly overrated Bruce Springsteen goes to a foreign country to speak badly about the president of the United States. Is Springsteen highly overrated? 1,000%. And I used to like Springsteen. All right. And I do think he had, or maybe even still has, some talent. If he would stick to just playing his music, I think most people would give him a pass. Like other musicians his age, I think he's somewhat diminished, maybe somewhat less diminished than some of his peers. Certainly, I think he's maybe a little more coherent than John Mellencamp, right? Mellencamp, who argues with people in his audience. I haven't seen Springsteen doing that. Anyway, Trump went on to say, never liked him, where I would say I liked him at one time. Never liked his music. I liked some of his music. Or his radical left politics. Yeah, I don't really like his politics at all. And more importantly, he's not a talented guy. So Colbert is going to, of course, emphasize that part because I do think there is some talent there, but I would agree that he's overrated. All right? Not a talented guy. That's Trump's way of like doing a little Marco, or, you know, what is it? What did he say about Jeb Bush? Not little Jeb, but I can't remember now. And it's a classic takedown. What did he say about Jeb Bush? A lot of stuff very similar to what he's saying here about Springsteen. Low energy. Wasn't it low energy? He did. Jeb Bush was just too polite and too nice. And people want someone who's going to fight, who's going to stick up for their values. You know, this is why we've lost all these jobs to foreign countries. And the Johnny 99 character, which I read a really good article the other day. If you know the song Johnny 99, which I believe was on Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska album, Johnny 99 lost his job in a factory. All these make-believe factory worker characters who lost their jobs because we essentially outsourced those jobs to countries like China. And Trump has been on China's case since he got in. And if you remember, Ross Perot ran on the same stuff. And people were like, hey, nobody's talking about this. Both Clinton and H.W. Bush were kind of blindsided by this. And Perot ended up being right. No one's going to remember that, though. That basically Trump is running on Perot's platform. Trump is implementing the things that Ross Perot wanted to do. So it's not really all that far-fetched to say that Bruce Springsteen's Johnny 99 character would probably have voted for Donald Trump. It's right there. So anyway, Colbert went off and said, what are you? What are you doing here? Attacking Bruce is like attacking America itself. What? Huh? No, not at all. Attacking Bruce Springsteen it's free speech, much like what Springsteen was doing in the UK was free speech. And, you know, he goes off and says, I haven't seen a politician be this tone deaf since Herbert Hoover's campaign slogan, apple pie sucks and so does your mom. First of all, he's making up a campaign slogan that didn't exist when Herbert Hoover ran for president, all right? So you notice how he talks about Herbert Hoover, and, you know, you can kind of picture the Hoovervilles and, you know, the let them eat cake mentality. You know, Hoover didn't do a great job. He didn't do a great job, and he was somewhat tone deaf to what was happening around him at the time, but he didn't have a campaign slogan regarding apple pie. And what Colbert is doing here is he's equating Bruce Springsteen with apple pie and your mom. So if you don't like apple pie, apparently you don't like Bruce Springsteen or your mother, right? And there are people, by the way, that don't like apple pie. But, you know, you hear America, apple pie, Chevy trucks. We could bring in some Bob Seger here, like a rock. You don't like this commercial for Chevy trucks? Then you must not like Bruce Springsteen or apple pie. See how they do this stuff, though? And because Trump doesn't like Springsteen, so what? A lot of people don't like Springsteen. A lot of people would prefer if we kind of just focused on what is actually happening out there. And, you know, this guy has, of course, bashed tariffs because that is trying to level the playing field to some degree, since apparently we're supposed to give our money away to foreign countries. So if you're not into giving money to Ukraine, or take my hard-earned money and give it to China, because China is allowed to basically put tariffs on our stuff. So our Johnny 99 workers will lose their jobs. And what are they told? Well, maybe you can learn a new trade, Johnny. Maybe you can become a coder or something. That'll fix everything. Or maybe you can be on my late night talk show as somebody who, I don't know, what is Johnny 99 capable of doing for Stephen Colbert? Probably nothing, right? He's probably not qualified. But maybe he can move some of the equipment around. Maybe he can, you know, clean up at the end of the show and sweep up for his audience, who are going to leave all of their, you know, I don't know, maybe they're eating in the audience, and they can help clean up all the trash they leave behind, much like all these protesters do. And someone's going to clean up the mess for these people. And one thing I don't like is this ignorance that happens when these people say democracy, right? That it's about our democracy. No, it's about our constitutional republic. Springsteen said, things are happening right now that are altering the very nature of our country's democracy, and they're too important to ignore. But in America, my home, like people in the UK need some sort of a current events lesson. But in America, my home, Bruce, you could move out. You could be like Rosie O'Donnell. They're persecuting people for their right to free speech. What? What happened 4 or 5 years ago when people had a right to free speech? They were told to shut up. They were banned. They were censored. They were kicked off of platforms. Their channels were frozen. Just saying, some people, they had that problem. Other people didn't because they were talking about guitar tone or, gee, I can't wait to see this person in concert. Can't wait to hear a couple of old dudes who can't sing anymore. Hey, you could talk about that all day long. And you could say, hey, I still think this guy could sing, but they can't. But if you say that, that's kind of mean too. That's harmful. Harmful Dave instead of harmless Dave. Maybe I'm just not meant to do this, right? In America, my home, they're persecuting people for their right to free speech and voicing their dissent. That's happening now. They're persecuting them. How are they persecuting them? Can I get a full accounting on how they're persecuting those people? Because some people who don't believe that foreigners are loyal American workers, people who broke into the country, who came here illegally, they don't think they're loyal Americans, all right? And he called them loyal American workers. Isn't that kind of like groupthink, double speak, whatever they call it, double plus good language from 1984? It sounds like it to me. They're rolling back historic civil rights legislation. I can't remember them passing any bills to roll back civil rights legislation. Like the stuff that was passed, in 1964? Mostly on party lines where Republicans voted for it and Democrats were opposed to it. Yeah, that civil rights legislation that I think Springsteen was alluding to. They don't tell you that, though. They don't tell you that Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. They don't tell you about all this stuff because they don't want you to think about it, because then you'll go, wait a minute, these guys have kind of been sort of on the wrong side of history for a very long time. And guys like Colbert with his dancing syringes, man, like who's he getting money from? He's obviously being paid by someone, and it's not the working class who watches his television show. So anyway, just wanted to make a few points about this because nobody counters this stuff. Everybody just, it doesn't really affect me, man. Just play the music and, I'm cool with all of your crazy politics. I'm like, no. I mean, if you're going to play your hit songs and not talk this way, I think you're better off at this point. I think you are. I think you're going to do less damage to your reputation, and that's your lane. People say all the time, hey, stay in your lane, dude. No, my lane has been all 4 lanes of the highway for quite some time. And if people don't like it, there are other things to watch because I basically combine religion, politics, music. I even talk about Christianity. I even talk about Christian music and how I think the message is far more vital for the time that we're in, even though Bruce Springsteen at one time at least understood that the working class losing their jobs, their factory jobs, was a bad thing. He understood that. But what he fails to understand now is that those working class people are voting for the billionaire who at least cares about them. Even if you think he's not doing enough or actually not following through. Nobody has even talked about this stuff since Ross Perot brought it up. And now Trump is trying to implement some of this stuff. And maybe he's going to fail because people like Colbert and the people who fund Colbert are going to win. And if they win, then we're never going to really solve the problems that affect the working class in this country. We're really not. People are going to have crappy service jobs, or they're going to be told they better learn how to code or do something that they don't want to do. And we need more working class. We need more HVAC people. We need more plumbers and electricians and builders and contractors and construction workers. We need those people. Those people make the country work. We need more truck drivers. Do truck drivers support Bruce Springsteen? No, I don't think they do. I think they support more like the old school country musicians, and they probably don't even care anymore. They listen to the music that they like, and they don't want to be preached at by people that have no idea what they're going through. All right? So anyway, I went far too long on this video. There are all kinds of different aspects to this, and I don't understand. You want to talk about tone deafness? You're really tone deaf to the people who make the country work. Bruce Springsteen has long abandoned the Johnny 99 types for the Wall Street types, for the elite types, for the people who, they want these workers to come over here so they can pay them nothing to clean their house. Hey, I'll give you some cash under the table, and you can live comfortably with 12 other people in a small apartment because, hey, you'll own nothing and be happy anyway. That's the globalist way. And we'll teach you how to eat bugs and all of that fun stuff. It's out there, folks. I'm not really making any of this stuff up. The fact that I went there on this video even surprises me. But here we are in the year 2025. Either we're going to have a constitutional republic or we're going to have nothing, okay? And we're really heading to the road where we're going to end up with nothing at some point. And I think we should all just worry about our families, and we should just focus on those things and not, patronize these people on late night television who could really care less about the fate of humanity. What they care about is theirs and making sure that their stuff is secure, while the people who are scrapping, who are doing the best they can, those people are the last people they care about, and their advertisers care nothing for these people. They just want to use them. They want to use them for experiments, for crying out loud. So, all right, I'm done. I'm done ranting. God bless America. God bless the working class of this country. They deserve better. And Stephen Colbert, the best thing you can do is boycott the advertisers. Don't watch the shows. They really aren't good television shows anyway. But they'll have some musical guest you want to watch, and you'll tune in, and you're just like, wow, I wish I didn't watch this. I mean, if they can just put it in a little YouTube clip and you can watch that, but don't even watch that, because you know what? That just validates the fact that they can still draw an audience to some degree if they have a big enough celebrity. But that's just, I don't know, folks. It's not enough for me to tune in. And, I'd like to see certain people on TV, and I'm hoping that maybe they won't go on these shows, but they're probably just trying to promote their music or what's left of the classic rock world or the legacy music industry. I think it's all got to go independent, underground, and word of mouth. I think that's the way of the future. It's much like how everything is being decentralized when it comes to all of these streaming platforms. Even though I don't like it, there is a measure of independence to it, and I think that's the way things are going to evolve. All right. See you soon.